Back in Photoshop and I did a selection, quick selection of moose. I actually use the polygon lasso tool, so it's a good selection. I wouldn't say it's a great selection, so there might be some refinement available. So you'll notice that in any of these tools, selection tools along the control panel, there is a select and mask. So whether I'm in any of the marquee tools, the polygon lasso tool, or the magic wand or quick selection, there is a select and mask. Also, if you have an active selection, and even if you click off of this, and you can either click back into a selection tool, or you can go into the select and go into select and mask, or shift command R. So you can see I can zoom in. And one of the problems that you'll find when when you're looking at a selection of an animal, or even a person with their hair, is that anything with hair tends to be a little bit of a challenge because it's not a clean selection. And you can also see that it's a little jaggedy. It's just not quite perfect. So once you're in select and mask, this allows you to refine your mask. So you're gonna see, I'm gonna have to move my image over out a little bit here, but inside this, you can see that I'm gonna command minus out here so you can see this a little bit better. So when we zoom out of Moose, he looks pretty decent, but when you zoom in, so notice I'm only at 50%. Even when I zoom in to 100%, I'm like, meh, did I do a great job? All right, so I'm gonna zoom out and I'm gonna make some adjustments. Now the view mode that you have here, real-time refinement, so that's gonna give you, like, any of your adjustments that you make, it's gonna show you the changes that it's made, so you wanna have it set to that. I usually have it set to onion skinning with the transparency set to 100%. Every once in a while, I might need to see the background, especially if I already have other images placed that I'm trying to line this up with. I might want to see the background, so you might want to reduce the transparency. You could do it on white, again, having it all the way up to 100%, on black, on overlay, so you see the red. But you have different options. Black and white, I've never actually used this one. I'm not, I guess if you're really just concerned about the shape of the silhouette, maybe, or on layers. If we had other layers, it would show us the other layers. So I'm just going to keep it on onion skinning. That's kind of my preference. Um, and then if we go down, we have some other options. So I've got some different content aware and object aware, color aware rather, and object aware. You're not going to have these because this is a brand new in 2021 version. So 2019 doesn't have these options, but it does have the different settings for the edge detection. So remember that when we're creating a selection, it's just a line of pixels that are designating a certain area. So you're collecting the pixels that are inside of the marching ants that go around, um, that are the path. So you have this path, and everything on the inside of the path or on the outside of the path is being selected. So depending on whether you inverse or the selection or not. So there are some, so with when you're changing, the first thing that you want to think about is from that edge of pixels, that is the path. You have a radius that comes out, so it's in pixels, so you can have 1 pixel all the way up to 2 pixels, 4 pixels. I would suggest no more than 2 pixels. And then when you start making these adjustments, it's going to affect those 2 pixels going out. Now might want to make it more or less, but typically 2 pixels is right where you want it. So you don't want to smooth too much. When we smooth too much, we start getting kind of a blobby type of shape to our figure. We want to keep some of that if we did our job right. And I was questionable because I was moving fast on this, but if did your job right and you had a decent selection, you shouldn't have to smooth very much because it makes it look false and not organic. So typically I'm below 7 smoothing. I'm somewhere in the 2 to 3 range. Definitely with the feathering, I'll show you what feathering does. I'm going to take it out into the extreme. But when you feather, you get this like halo. It goes from opaque to transparent in a certain distance. So this is increasing the distance of that feathering, and it starts getting really cheesy looking. So in most cases, you do not want to use very much feathering, if at all. I usually do like somewhere between zero point 0.4 pixels to 0.7 pixels, just a little bit to add to soften that edge, even though it seems like what I'm about to tell you is doing the exact opposite. So a little bit of a softening of the edge, and then I'm going to take my contrast all up to like 25%. Now you can see how sharp the edge starts looking when I get up to 62%. That can be a little bit too much. So I'm going to take that down to about 20%. So it's a nice crisp edge with just a little bit of softening at the very edge of it. Also, you can shift your edge. So if you're always on the outside, you can pull that edge in. You can see it'll give it a minute to catch up. I'm just going to shift that edge in versus it might be easier to see the out. So you can see that it shifted out. So I think mine was pretty much on point. Um, and so I'll just set that to 0. Now, if you have like a light, like if I took a picture of my Labradoodle underneath the grass, um, with all that green grass, I might get color because she's blonde. Might get the color of the green contaminating the white hairs. So I might want to click contaminate color. He doesn't have much of that because he was pretty much on a brown background that matches him. So he doesn't have any color that's kind of bleeding into him. And then the last thing that you want, I'm going to uncheck decontaminate colors so you can see this. The default output is just to do a selection. So you won't see very much difference in when you click OK. Typically, you want to create a new layer with layer mask. What that's going to do is copy the object copy the layer, put a mask on it, so it's masking out the everything that you don't want to see, and that is just revealing what's inside of the selection. So we'll look at that in a minute. I'm going to set that before I click OK. There are a few things that you might want to take note of over here. You can, let's say I noticed that there was like a big chunk that I was missing. I can add that to the selection using the polygon lasso tool, or I can go back and let's say I realize I have a big chunk I don't want and I can take that away. I can zoom in and zoom out by hitting the command or going into minus mode. Again, plus minus works in this setting. So I think having that is just fine. So if you want to have just using that command minus command plus, oops, I must be in QuickTime. So we're gonna make sure that that is set. Okay, so I'm back inside of Photoshop, command minus, command plus. You can do that there. You can also use the hand tool to move around. But again, those keyboard commands that we talked about work, so I don't see the need to do that as long as you're using your keyboard commands. You can also, you have a quick selection tool, so if you wanted to select something using the quick selection tool, it will do that. It will also subtract if you don't want that. I'm going to command minus or command Z rather, and go back because I don't want either of those. And I can paint it back on. So if I just have a certain area, I can just literally paint the mask. and I can add and subtract right there. So maybe it's not, I don't even want that content aware on at all. The big thing I wanted to show you here, and I'm going to zoom in to show you this, is that you can use, this is the hairbrush, the refinement tool, and you can paint over the edge and it's going to soften the edge and it's going to try to find the back, separate the background from the hairs. So add the little hairs back in, but take out the background. So I go along the edge here and it's going to refine that. Sometimes it does a good job, sometimes it doesn't. So you just have to kind of go back and forth. If I don't like what it does, I hit minus and then it will fix it. But just kind of painting back and forth. And this does take some time, but if you take the time to do it, it really does make a big difference in the quality when you're working with furry animals like this little guy, or even with human hair along the head. You don't want people to look like they have a helmet on. So it did a really nice job here where his hair was dark. You can see that looks really nice. It doesn't always, because of the background, it's not doing a super great job where it's brown on brown. It's having a hard time figuring it out. So, but anyway, once I'm done, pretend I've painted all through these things. I've refined the I've used the hair tool all along him, and I've decided that this is a perfect. I do want to. This is really bad right here, so I want to fix this edge, and it's doing a pretty good job right there. It's probably not going to do great in the shadow areas, but I'm just going to paint through here. Once I've done all of this, which I'm not going to do right now just to save time, I would go ahead and click OK. Oops, and I forgot to click new layer with layer mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my image back and click into this. I'm going to then go back into select and mask. It's still holding all of the same information. And then I'm going to go down to here and pick down to my output and select new layer with layer mask and click OK. So now I have my selection of the puppy, and then I have the original background. So if I wanted to turn him pink, just for the fun of it, oops, I'm in background mask. This is an important thing. So the frame around here means that I selected the mask and I actually wanted to select the image. So I'm going to select the image and actually go into hue and saturation and not curves. And I'm going to change his color. So now he is a blue puppy. And I can colorize him, and I want, which basically turns him into a black and white with one color overlay. So those are some of the things to think about that you can do that are fun to play around with, and really important to understand the benefits of layer masks. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And you can see the whole image is purple, and I'm just masking that out. So pull that down there. Anyway, all right. So that is how to use refine mask to create a wonderful layer mask.